What's up, guys, and welcome back to another video from the stands. And today we have such an exciting topic. It's something that content creators all across the platform have been doing up to this point in the off season, and that is giving their Premier League predictions. And at the time of recording, it is Thursday at 3 p.m. So in less than 24 hours, we will have kicked off the new 25-26 Premier League season. I can't wait. I feel like, honestly, this off season has just felt longer than other off seasons for whatever reason that may be. But, you know, we got a little taste of the Community Shield with Liverpool and Palace, and then we saw Spurs in the Super Cup. So the Premier League's back, and before it starts tomorrow, I want to give you guys my Premier League predictions. That way, at the end of the season, when I get all 20 right, you guys are going to say that I know a ball, but if I get all of them wrong, then we won't ever talk about this again. Simple enough, we have the tiers here. We have Premier League champions, then we have the 4 other teams that will be joining them in the Champions League next year. Europa League, Conference League in a tier, and then we have 8th through 12th, 13th through 17th, and then 18th through 20th will be the relegation zone, and that is the bottom of our tier list. The way that I'm going to be breaking it up and breaking it down is I'm just going to go from 20 to 1. And I'm going to give a little bit of expertise and a little bit of my opinion on why I think a team is going to be there. But I'm going to be doing so without diving too much into the transfer windows, just because we have a major video coming out, which we've been putting a lot of work on that video. So it'll be definitely a good one you won't want to miss. And that's going to go really into the deep details of each team's transfer window. We're going to give a grade, go over the players arriving in the clubs, the players that have departed these clubs. So it'll be a good video. We'll mention transfers, obviously, because they have to do with the predictions of the league. But again, not too much into it. So with that being said, we will get started. So hope you guys enjoy. Obviously, click the like button, subscribe, go follow us on TikTok. This is our first full year that we're going to be doing content for, and we just want to create a community. So we're hoping that you guys like the video and enjoy it and become part of the family. And we'll get started. So with all that being said, we will kick it off in 20th. Before I start, actually put your predictions down in the comments, put your winner down in the comments, and then we'll see if we match up at the end of the video. So now that that's all done, in 20th place, we have Burnley. I have Burnley in 20th. I think, honestly, let me do this. Leeds 19th, and we'll leave it for that. We'll leave it with that for now. And the reason why I have Burnley and Leeds in 20th and 19th is simply just because over the past however many years, we have seen that newly promoted teams, as soon as they get to the Premier League, it's a very, very tough adaptation period for these clubs. They don't have the players to compete with the other Premier League teams, other Premier League clubs, the financials, like all this stuff just comes together, and ultimately we just see the 3 teams that come up go straight back down. And I think with Burnley and Leeds, for sure that will be happening. Sunderland we'll touch on in a little bit, but for Burnley, I think that they have tried to spend the money this window, but you just look at the quality of those signings, and I don't know if they really match up to what the other Premier League teams have. So I see it again to be a struggle for Burnley. I know the one year they came up, went straight back down, but it was the year that they won the championship, and everyone was like, oh, Burnley's going to stay up. I don't see it happening. I think Burnley's going to go down. I think Burnley and Leeds, you can switch them with whoever you think is going to come last. But Leeds, they're under new ownership, so it's something that, they have the money, they've spent the money, but again, it's similar to Burnley in the fact that I just don't think that they have enough talent and a group of guys that is strong enough to withstand the Premier League season and survive. So I think it'll be tough at Ellen Road this year for Leeds United. I do think that they have players like Jaden Bogle and Wilfried Gnonto, where these are guys that have been in the Premier League before and I think are decent players. So I think that that quality of player and experience in the Premier League just puts them above Burnley. But again, I don't really see it happening for either of these 2 teams this year, and I think that they will both be going back down to the championship. With that being said, these are the 2 teams that were automatically promoted, and that leaves the one team that won in the championship playoff, and I do have Sunderland, unfortunately. I hope Sunderland stay up, I really do. Do I think it's going to happen? I'm not too sure. The reason I have Sunderland in 18th is because this is the team that just won the championship playoff, and they didn't win the championship playoff by a dominating performance. They barely won this game. But after the championship playoff, we saw a complete transformation in the club in the terms of the money they spent, the quality of the players that they brought in. I think Sunderland spent, again, we'll talk about this on the next video, but they spent over £100 million. They broke their club record transfer fee on a midfielder, Habib Diarra. They brought in guys like Granit Xhaka, who have Premier League experience and is one of the better midfielders in the world on his day. And I just think that they've been very active. And when you look at a team that has just come up, obviously over the past few years, like we've mentioned, it's become one of those things where the talent gap is just so big and the gap is just too large for these teams to compete. And I think Sunderland, even if they go down, at least they're going down fighting. At least they're going to go into this Premier League season knowing that they did everything possible for them to survive this year. And I think that's what they did this summer. I really do. So I hope Sunderland survive. I think it would be a cool story if Sunderland survive, but just because of the trend, maybe I'm just following what everyone else is saying, but I do see Sunderland going down just because I think the gap is a little bit too much in comparison to these Premier League clubs that have been in the league for a good while. And one of those clubs that have been here for a decent amount of time is Brentford. And I do have Brentford coming in at 17th. I just think that the departures, what they've lost, I just don't think that they can replicate it with the arrivals and the guys that they're bringing in. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough season for Brentford. Quickly just running over it, they lost Brian Mbumo, and they're going to lose probably Johan Wissa. That is a bunch of their goals and assists from last year accounted for, but that's not even the biggest part in my opinion. My biggest takeaway from Brentford's summer is just that they lost Thomas Frank. They lost their manager. They lost one of the better managers in the Premier League. I just think it's going to be a tough year for Brentford. It's just so much adaptation. They need the coach to come in. They need the coach to perform. He has to get to know the players. I know he's had preseason, but the Premier League is just a different story, as we've learned with Ruben Amorim, which we'll get to. It's just going to take time for Brentford to gel. They need to revamp the squad. They're bringing players back, such as Kevin Schade and Igor Thiago, who they spent a lot of money on in the previous summer, is now fully back and fit and healthy, so you'll expect goals from him. But you look at the squad, and I just don't think there's enough there for Brentford to consistently go out on a week-to-week basis and get performances that bring in points. Maybe I'm wrong. I just don't really see it happening for Brentford this season unless they could start spending some money and unless they could revamp the squad and gel quickly. But as we know, in the Premier League, that is a lot easier said than done. So that's why I have Brentford in at 17th. And followed, or I guess one ahead of them, we have Fulham. And Fulham's an interesting one. When I look at Fulham, I look at a team that's just steady. Like when I think of Fulham, I think of a club that's steady. They do the right things. They have a good manager in Marco Silva. They have decent players. But this window, again, won't dive too deep into it, but they just didn't do anything. Like there's not enough that they did that makes me think, oh, Fulham is going to take the next step. Usually in the Premier League, after a season's done, you want to get better every single year. You want to get rid of the people or the ownership or things that didn't do well or that you have a problem with in the club, and you want to get better. So as long as you're getting better each year, little by little, it's going to add up and you're going to rise in the Premier League standings. I just don't think Fulham did that this summer. And I think Marco Silva was not backed. You look at the squad, they have pieces. Joshua King, I think, is going to take a real big step forward in his career with Fulham this year. Alex Iwobi was good last year, so we'll see how he does. But I just don't have too much to say about Fulham. So that's pretty much it. I think they'll be okay, and that's that. I don't think they'll go down or anything. But next up, we have another London club, and that is, gotta get them over there, West Ham. This might be a little bit surprising just because when I was making my standings and my table, I didn't really have West Ham this low in my head, but then I'm putting other teams up and I'm saying, you know what, they might actually be this low. It's going to be interesting with West Ham. Obviously, Graham Potter is at the controls, and we've seen what he could do with Brighton, and we see also what he could do with Chelsea in an opposite way. But you look at the West Ham squad, they brought in a couple guys, but it's really the same squad that's coming back from last year into this year, and they're just expected to make big steps. Jared Bowen, obviously Mr. Consistent for West Ham. He has always been class, so he'll be good again. You don't have to worry about that. Lucas Paquetá obviously had the transfer rumors last year, and then he had the ban rumors last year. So hopefully all that has kind of simmered down this offseason, and he's able to come into the team this year for the Irons and just play carefree, play his normal brand of football. They have guys at the back like Max Kilman, who's coming back, and he'll be a mainstay in the back line. Todibo, they made his loan deal permanent over the summer. And a main signing, or actually, before we move on, Nicholas Füllkrug, a player who didn't really get a lot of minutes and a lot of quality minutes last year. He'll be probably the number 9, the focal point. And then the signing that I would take away most of all is Malik Diouf, the left wing back. He's honestly like a left winger, left mid, but he'll come in as a left wing back in the Potter system. The fullbacks of Wan-Bissaka and Diouf, so you have one very defensive, one a lot more attacking. I think West Ham will be a little bit more exciting to watch this year But I mean, it all comes down to how they defend and if they can score goals. I mean, I think that's the biggest point, is if they can score goals. You know you'll get them from Bowen, but where else are they going to come from? We'll see. So the more I talk about it, the more West Ham kind of excites me. So maybe I think about pushing them up, but I'll leave them there for now. And the one team that I would, if I had to change right now, would be Wolves. That will be the next team that goes in. Maybe Wolves and West Ham should be switched, but I just think it's too close that it really doesn't matter that much. Wolves, yeah, let's talk about them. It's just one of those clubs where it's similar to Fulham in the fact that they didn't really. It's actually a mix between Fulham and Brentford, where they lost key pieces and they still have a majority of the squad that is expected to improve, but they didn't really bring in much outside of one quality player, in my opinion. John Arias is one of the best signings of summer for the price that he was at. But outside of Arias, I don't see that much improvement for Wolves given what they lost in their two massive players with Ryan Ignori and Mateus Cunha. The one thing I'll say about Wolves, they made the Strand Larsen deal permanent. I think Strand Larsen is a very, very good striker in the Premier League. I think he has good pace. I think he's got good strength. I think he has a good build. He's good in the air. He's got a finish on him. And he's good hold-up play. And it honestly is Haaland-esque. I mean, obviously he doesn't perform to the levels of Erling Haaland, but he is Haaland-esque at times. Outside of Strand Larsen, you look through the middle of the field, then you have João Gomes, who I think João Gomes is one of the better midfielders in the Premier League. And it's a shame that he's at Wolves at times, because I think if he was at a bigger club, the world would kind of see João Gomes as one of the best midfielders in the league. But he's in Wolves for now, so maybe he gets a move at some point, but I think he's class. He plays next to Andre in the middle. I think that is a good midfield pairing. Outside of that, I think the team is just going to be the same as it has been, which over the past couple years have been a mid-table side, and there's nothing wrong with that, or mid to low-table side, so that's why I have them in. So there's not too much reasoning for that, just outside of that's just kind of where they've been, so why is it going to change now? Moving on, we have our first surprise team, and it was a team that performed very well last year, and they didn't perform well the year before last, and I kind of expect them to repeat that a little bit. So I have Nottingham Forest in 13th place. So that'll complete this tier of like the lower mid-table. And the reason I have Forest in here is just because we kind of saw last year their start. The start was unbelievable. They found themselves in Champions League places. They were winning games by the skin of their teeth. They were walking away with 1-0 results. But then they were also, for example, they were beating Man United at home. They were convincing. Like, it was a convincing win against some big clubs as well. So where do we stand with Forest now coming into this season? I think the squad is good. They're returning a lot of players. The whole back five, who you look at the back five from last year, Matt Sells, the goalkeeper, could have been Premier League Team of the Season. Milinkovic, center back, could have been Premier League Team of the Season. Murillo could have been talked about in the Premier League Team of the Season. Nico Williams could have been talked about in the Premier League Team of the Season. Ola Aina, probably in the first half of the Premier League season, was brilliant, and then second half he kind of lost steam just because other guys were performing at high levels. That whole back five is coming back. You have a midfield where Elliot Anderson comes back, and he's a big part of the team last year. You have Chris Wood, who bagged all the goals. He'll be back. Callum Hudson-Odoi. So all these pieces are coming back. Nuno, as the head coach, will be back again. So why does it, if they're bringing all these players that they had last year and they got a good finish last year, why are they finishing so low this year? I just think it's because that's kind of the way that the trend has looked outside of the amazing start. They started in the Champions League places last year. They were consistent for a little bit, but then at the midpoint towards the end of the season, you just saw a very steep fall off for Forest. And it was kind of just like, now we're back to reality. They're crashing down from the stars a little bit. And I kind of think that's what we should expect for this season to be. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, obviously with Forest, the biggest thing about them is their defense that we've talked about. So you can't lose games if you don't concede goals, but as we've seen in Forest preseason, they're not really scoring goals either. So we'll see with Forest. I don't expect them to be anything like they were in the beginning of last Premier League season, but I don't expect them to be fighting for relegation or anything like that. I think that they'll be fine. We are now moving on to our 8 to 12 tier, and starting in 12th place, we have Bournemouth. You guys could be thinking, Jaden, you're a little bit hypocritical because you just said Forest is bringing back their whole defense and they're finishing 13th, but Bournemouth just ridded their whole defense and you're putting them in 12th. Honestly, fair. Fair enough. Bournemouth got rid of their entire back five, apart from their right fullbacks. Kirkes, gone. Zabarni, gone. Neto and Kepa, gone. And then obviously, how can I forget about this guy? Dean Huijsen, gone. So you look at the players that this club has lost. The only reason that I have them at 12th is because of the manager. I think Areola is one of the best managers in the Premier League. When I was talking about Thomas Frank earlier, I think Areola is on that level. If I was a mid-table Premier League club like the Bournemouths, the Brightons, the Brentfords, the Wolves, like one of those teams, the Fulhams, like Marco Silva I think is very good. I think Thomas Frank, obviously, he got the move to Spurs, which we'll talk about. Brighton with Fabian Hurtzler, I think Hurtzler is good. But I do think that Areola is the best of the bunch. And if there was anybody that I trust to rebuild the squad and have the squad playing a good level of football in the Premier League, I would give it to Areola. I mean, we saw it a couple years ago when Solanke was sold, and Solanke was the focal point of the Bournemouth team. A lot of goals left, and everyone was questioning, how is Bournemouth going to score goals? It's not going to be the same. And Areola kind of just stepped in and said, like, let me do what I need to do and we'll be fine. I have no reason to believe that he won't do the same thing this summer. They obviously are working on signings for the back line. And outside of the back line, you look forward, you have the whole midfield pretty much will still be there. Philip Billing comes back from loan. And then you have the front three, Kluivert, Tavernier, Evan Nielsen, who they brought in last year, Semenyo. Like these guys, they didn't go anywhere, and they had great Premier League seasons last year. So I think the defense is something that they could figure out. It's more of the goals that I would be worried about, and I'm not too worried about the creativity from Bournemouth. I think they have the players that Areola gives the freedom to, and it's a good balance of creativity and system where they're able to produce positive results, and I'm not expecting anything less from Bournemouth this season. I know it's been a tough window with the departures, but the money they got and the money that they have to now use to bring in new players and new talent, Bournemouth will be fine. I think they'll be just fine. I don't see them dropping below this tier. I really don't. With that being said, we are moving on to 11th. I hate to do this. For those of you who know me, for those of you who don't know me, there's a reason I wear this shirt. This is my club. And over the past few years, it's been difficult. And I don't expect this year to be any different. Manchester United in at 11th. And one thing that you'll learn about me, if you follow the TikTok and watch the TikToks, when we do our Premier League predictions each week, I will never pick United to lose. I will never do it. But the thing is that last season, they just lost so much. And let's talk about it now. Let's get the emotions out, done. Now let's talk about actual football. Ruben Amorim. He is the guy who is in charge of Manchester United this season. It will be his full season in charge. He was brought in January of last year, which at the time I didn't really think was the right choice. He came in, United were bad, but they weren't horrible, has come in to the side, and the team plummeted all the way down to 17th, at some point 16th, and then they ended up finishing, I think, 15th. It was just a terrible year. He went all the way to the Europa League final, put all of his eggs into the basket of the Europa League, went to the final, and put up a stinker performance. He set the team up in a stinker way, but the players, don't get me wrong, the players were terrible. They lost the Europa League. They lost out on all the money they could have had. And now it kind of left everyone questioning in the offseason, what is Manchester United becoming? This is a team that is supposed to be one of the biggest clubs in the world. Now they're struggling to even get into Europe, into the Conference League, into the Europa League. They're not even close. Why do I have them in 11th? If you want me to be honest, I think this is the biggest swing team in the entire Premier League this season. I think they could finish as high as a Champions League spot. Maybe that's a little bit of bias, but I really do believe if Amorim pulls it together and gets the guys playing in a certain way that how he wants, I think it can produce positive results in the Premier League. But I can also see them finishing in this tier down here with the clubs from 13th to 17th. Amorim likes to play his 3-4-2-1 system. I'm not going to dive in too much to the tactics because I know more about United than I will about any other club, so it's not worth it to sit here and talk. But he plays a system that involves the fullbacks immensely. And with the signings that they made in Mbeumo and Cunha to play the 2 10s, Bruno maybe drops in a little bit deeper to midfield, which I don't know how I feel about that. We're going to have to see. And then you have Ahmad, who's probably, in my opinion, was United's best player last season, on one side. And then you have Patrick Dorgu on the left. And then you have Diogo Dalot, who could fill in on the right or the left. With the fullback, I mean, when we saw Amorim with Sporting, we saw Giovanni Quenda and the player that he had become under Amorim. So it's clear that the wingbacks are so imperative in this system. I think Ahmad and Dorgu can do the job that, I mean, when you look at Amorim, you see what he wants, and I think the player profiles that he has kind of suits the system he wants to play. And then obviously up front, you have the 3-4-2-1. So the 2-1, all three of those guys are brand new signings, we expect. Problem with United last year was not really the defensive piece. Like Amarim came in and they kind of were okay defensively. They didn't really concede many goals. It was the scoring goals that was the problem. And they just couldn't score goals. And you spend the money that they spent, close to £200 million on 3 attackers, so now they better have, like, there's no excuse for Amarim. He got his guys, he got his attacking players, he got his creativity, he got his goals, he has to perform now. So I think the pressure's on for Amarim. I think he finishes literally mid-table this season, but I do think it's possible for them to finish all the way up in the top 5. One spot ahead of Manchester United. Give me the Toffees. This is going to be tough to talk about because when you look at this out of context, you might say, whoa, Everton up at 11th, or 10th, excuse me. And yeah, fair enough. But the window, and again, we're not going to dive too much into the window, but the window that Everton had, I think David Moyes could be cooking. And this is one of the situations where I just don't know how to feel about Moyes. When I look at the players and I see Tierno Barry and I see Iliman Ndiaye, I love Iliman Ndiaye. And then I see a double pivot of James Garner and Idrissa Gana Gueye. And then I see the signing of Kieran Dewsbury Hall. And then the loan of Jack Grealish and the back 4 with Tarkowski, Branthwaite, Pickford in goal. Like, the pieces are there. The pieces are there for this club to be considered, I guess it's not Goodison anymore, but when you go to Goodison, you should struggle. You should be like, oh, I don't want to play Everton on their day. I think that is what the Toffees are coming back to be. It'll be interesting to see what Moyes does with the team, but now he has, it's actually similar to United. He has the pieces now. We'll see what happens. The back 5, I think, is good. They signed pieces going forward. They signed attacking players. Carlos Alcaraz, also another one of those guys. I think Everton could really be in business this season, and I'm excited to watch them. It's one of those clubs where I wasn't thrilled to watch them last year. It was like, oh, Everton playing Fulham. I don't really want, like, with no disrespect, that's a bit of a boring game. I don't really want to watch it. Or even Everton against, like, Forest. If Forest was playing defensive, like, it's just one of those games that's on in the background. But now, at least for the first couple weeks of the season, we'll see what happens. But when Everton comes on, I'm going to look at Everton and just be like, hey, Everton's on. Let's watch. Like, this is a club that excites me for this new Premier League season, and that's why I have them all the way up in 10th. Going to 9th, we talked about him earlier, Fabian Hurtzler and his boys, Brighton and Hove Albion. I love Brighton. I really do. I love Brighton. And I think that this club will have the biggest improvements in terms of individuals, if that makes sense. And if it doesn't, let me explain. Each year you want to improve the team as a whole. But Brighton, the individuals that they have on this team, I think that they take leaps in their careers. And there's 3 names, 3 main guys that maybe even 4, that I think about when I say that. The first one is Bart Verbruggen, the goalkeeper. I think he's a young goalkeeper. He's one of the younger starting goalkeepers in the Premier League. I think we saw glimpses of how good he could have been last year. I think this year we get to see a lot more of him. And I just think he's a good player. I think he's a good goalkeeper. And I'm not going to spend too much time talking about goalkeepers because nobody really cares to hear about that. But the other 3 are the important ones, and that is Carlos Baleba, Jorginho Rutter, and Yankuba Minte. And starting with Baleba, if he doesn't go to United, first of all, as a United fan, if you can sign Baleba, you sign Baleba, man. Brighton is, so, okay, little backstory. Let's take a deep breath. We've been talking for a while. My family is from England. They're from an area that's close to Brighton, so they support Brighton. I supported United before I've ever met them. So when I went and I met them for the first time and they said, oh, we support Brighton, then I started taking much more of an interest into Brighton. So Brighton is one of the clubs that I know more about in the Prem. The day that they signed Carlos Baleba, I know on my Instagram I reposted it. And I was like, this guy is going to change the club. And maybe I was being a little bit dramatic, but then you just watch him play. Honestly, I don't know how this turned into a Carlos Baleba glaze session, but Carlos Baleba has it all, man. He has it all. As a midfielder, he's strong. He covers ground. He's a good ball carrier. He's good at breaking up play. He's a brilliant tackler. He intercepts the ball well. The only piece that he doesn't really have is the final third, which in the position that he plays, you don't really need it all that much. Like, there was times last year where he was in front of goal and kind of just like his eyes like blew up and he skied the ball or made the wrong decision. And I do think his passing should, and needs to be a little bit better. But you don't find players like this very often. So if it's not this year that he's sold, I think this will be his last year with Brighton, no doubt. If he doesn't get sold in the summer, this will be his last year with Brighton. He'll have 2 years left on his deal, and every club in the world, every big club in the world, including the big six from the Prem, including Real Madrid and these clubs like this, they are all going to say, Carlos, come take this pen. Carlos, take the pen, sign your name on the piece of paper, we'll give you whatever you want. Brighton, you want 120 mil? Take it. Take more. Like, I think it's one of those situations because I think that's how good this guy can be. And you'll see it this year. I promise you, you'll see it. I mean, how do you follow that? We're going to try to follow it with Jorginho Rutter, who we saw Joao Pedro get the big move to Chelsea this summer, and he was the focal point for Brighton last year. I think that becomes Jorginho. The thing about Jorginho that I love personally is that he could play the 10, and he plays it well. He could play the 9, and he plays it well. He could play off both wings, and he plays it well. I think he's better centrally, but he can do the job out wide. I think this is his year. I'm expecting Jorginho Rutter to have a big year in the Premier League in terms of his statistics. I think his numbers should look double-digit goals, maybe even double-digit assists is a bit of a stretch, but maybe like 5 assists. I think this is his year. I really do. We'll come back to this at the end of the season, and when he pops off, then I can say I told you so. So this is me saying that I told you so now, that way in the future, or I'm putting you guys on, that way you could get on the boat before he explodes. The last one that we talked about, Yankuba Minte, this is a big piece. Actually, this is a long talk about Brighton. But Yankuba Minte, we need to talk about him because he's electric. I think this is another guy where you have him on the right. I think he'll play right wing most of the season. You have him on the left. Brighton has very good depth, but I just think Minte is one of those guys where you just have to play him week in, week out. He's electric. He gets up and down. Every time he gets the ball, you think something dangerous is going to happen. He kind of almost reminds me a little bit of Amad Diallo, but just a bit more raw. And the one thing I like about Hertzler is he doesn't really miss when it comes to profiling his players. And I think he uses Minte in certain ways where he knows he's going to get the best out of him. So don't expect anything less this season in the Premier League. Long talk. I get it. I'm sorry. I just rambled on and on about Brighton for a very long time. If you're still listening, then we're moving on right now. So let's just keep it going. In 8th place, making out the last team of this tier, might be a surprise. Newcastle. This might be a surprise for some of you guys, and I don't blame you. Like, again, this is one of the teams that I put in at 8th, and I'm like, oof, maybe this is a little bit too low. Let's talk about the good first. In my opinion, Newcastle have the best, if not the second best, if not definitely the third best. They have a top 3 midfield in the Premier League with Sandro Tonali, Joe Linton, and obviously Bruno Guimaraes. That midfield 3 is unbelievable. They balance themselves out well. They don't have anybody that's overly attacking, but they do the job well enough to where their wingers are so elite. And Jacob Murphy, Jacob Murphy had a great year last year, but they just added Jacob Ramsey to the attack. Anthony Elenga was just added to the attack. Anthony Gordon in the attack. Harvey Barnes had a good season. And then you take a look at the back line. You have Livramento and Lewis Hall, who I think is one of the better fullback pairings in the Premier League. Nick Pope, good goalkeeper. And then the center backs, Fabian Schär, Sven Botman, Dan Burn. You just add Malik. I don't know how to pronounce it. I actually trained with Malik once in Germany. He's unreal player. Chow, I think Malik Chow, or however you pronounce it, but great guy. Good player, great guy. Subtle flex. The additions to Newcastle is good, but the one piece that they're going to lose this summer, and maybe they replace him with Johan Wissa, that is the topic of conversation in the Newcastle camps. But losing, Newcastle fans, it pains me to say this, man, but losing Alexander Isak, you just lost, in my opinion, the best striker in the world. Best complete overall striker in the world. I think this guy is one of, if not the best striker in the world. And when you take somebody like that out of a team, last year it's not like they were amazing last year with him. So now you take him out and you just don't know what to expect. So the main reason I have Newcastle down here is just because I don't know where the goals are going to come from. They missed out on Ekitike. They had a horrible transfer window, which again, we'll talk about in the next video. I look at the teams that are still left down here, and one of them, obviously these guys, maybe a little bit surprising. But I just see all of them with thicker squad depth and just more of an ability to win games in the Premier League. Because the games in the Prem, man, it could be one scrappy goal or one half chance that someone just slots into the bottom corner. So you look at those games, and those games that are decided by such pivotal moments, and these teams have more quality and ruthlessness to do that. ahead of Newcastle. So that's kind of where I stand on the situation. Now we go up to the Conference League. So from here on out, everybody that's still left that hasn't been talked about, everyone's making Europe. Congratulations, you guys. You're going to Europe next year. Have fun. To start, they got bumped to the Conference League. They should be in the Europa League. Honestly, that's one thing that I'm pretty upset about. If I'm not going to get into it, but Crystal Palace, the Community Shield winners. Oof. Now, let me just preface first. If they lose Eze and if they lose Mark Gahey, they're nowhere near 7th. Like, don't get me wrong. But we talked about, actually, how did I leave this guy out? Oliver Glasner. When we talked about the managers earlier, like not those big names, but like the medium-sized names, maybe I didn't include Glasner in that because I honestly consider Glasner to be one of the top managers in the Prem. Everyone questioned him. Last year, beginning of the season, I remember beginning of the season last year, I was very high on Daniel Munoz and I was very high on Crystal Palace. And they came out of the gates and they were slow. And I was like, whoa, maybe I got this all wrong. But then Oliver Glasner said, let me just take over. And boy, did he take over. They went on a phenomenal FA Cup run. They won the FA Cup, which is a great achievement. And this offseason, they might not have added too much to the squad. But as of right now, they haven't lost anything either. And you saw the quality in the Community Shield. This was against Liverpool. This is against the Premier League champions. And they just hung in there for 90 minutes and then ultimately got the result on penalties. But the back 5 is brilliant. Chris Richards, Mark Gahey, Lacroix, Tyreek Mitchell, and Daniel Munoz. That back 5 is so solid. And then Dean Henderson, I think, is one of the more underrated goalkeepers in the Prem. And then you look at the front 3. And we could talk about Glasner, we could talk about the back 5, we could, whatever, right? If you need to take something away from Palace, it's the front 3. Eze, Mateta, Ismail Yassar. The beautiful thing about them, and I mentioned this in the Community Shield recap that I did on TikTok, they balance each other out so well. You have Mateta, who's the enforcer, the number 9. He's the bagsman. He's the big body. He holds people off, finish, and just have emphatic finishes at that. And then you have Ismail Yassar, who's like, he's lightning quick, gets up and down. He's skillful, but also raw in the fact that he just blisters people for pace. Also has a good finish on him and is just creative. So you have like a brute force and then just a rapid force. And then the one in between that, the mago, the technician. Eberechi Eze is one of the best players in the Prem, and I mean it when I say that. I think he's one of the best players in the Prem in terms of creativity. Right foot, left foot, goals, assists, penalties, free kicks, corners, link-up play, final pass. This guy Eze can do it all, and if they lose him, it'll be a big loss for Palace. It really will. But as long as he's putting on the Crystal Palace jersey and he's walking out at Selhurst Park, Crystal Palace will win games. This front 3, this manager, this back 5, I think the midfield still needs a bit of work. If I was in charge of Palace, I would put a lot of focus on another good midfielder. But wow, I love Palace. And maybe it's recency bias because they just won the Community Shield and, hopes are high for them this year. But I really do think that they have what it takes. And with that being said, let's finish out this tier. And in 6th place, Villa. Now, let's be honest. Villa were robbed last year on the final day. And and it was against United as well. But don't think a day hasn't gone by where Emery has not thought about that and thought about what he's going to do this year instead to put the squad into Champions League positions. I don't think it's going to happen for them based off my rankings. And the reason why, again, is just because they've had a similar window to other teams this Premier League where they didn't get better and they didn't really get worse. The thing with Villa last year that they did was they signed a lot of players on loan, Asensio, Rashford, and a few more. And they came in, they made an impact, and then they went back to their clubs this summer. Now all those guys left. So now if you're Villa, you need to revamp the squad in a way where you have enough squad depth to compete in Europe and also put out positive performances in the Premier League week in, week out. I think that they have done a decent enough job with Evan Guessant. I think that's a good signing. And I trust Emery. Getting 6th, the more I think about it, getting 6th is not bad. If you're Villa, obviously you're a little bit disappointed because of where you've been the last couple of years. But 6th place in the Premier League is not bad at all. I'm sure, if you're a Villa fan and you're watching this, do you take 6th based off of the past couple of years? Maybe, I don't know. But obviously, Ollie Watkins, still one of the best strikers in the Premier League. You have pieces like the back line. Emi Martinez, obviously one of the better goalkeepers. Ezri Konsa. You have depth at left back, Luca Digne, Moreno, and Matson. So like the depth is there. Tielemans, Tielemans is heavily underrated. I think he's one of the better midfielders in the Premier League. I think Villa will be fine. I really do. It's one of those where there's not much to talk about just because they didn't do enough or do a lot this summer. So we'll see how they do. I think that they finish 6th. I think that's fair. I think if you're a Villa fan, you kind of also think that's fair. So let me know. Now we go into the Champions League positions. And if I'm being honest with you guys, actually, let me put who I think comes in 5th, and because I think the top 4 is completely interchangeable. Yeah, actually, bar 1. But 5th place. Hard to see the logo because it didn't fit all on the screen. Tottenham Hotspur. Let me just, first off, send my apologies to anyone that's a Spurs fan after that result yesterday. I mean, Spurs fans, how do you continue to deal with this year after year? I mean, you take the Europa League, and as a United fan, fair play. I'll shake your hand. You got the better of us in the Europa League. You deserved the Europa League final. But to have a performance like that the other day against PSG, the best club in the world, considerably one of the best clubs in the world, and then sell it in the last 10 minutes, that is tough. Don't let that result take you away from the possibilities of the future. And what do I mean by that? Thomas Frank, I think Thomas Frank is one of the best. I keep saying that, one of the best. He's one of the best. But I really do believe that Thomas Frank is one of the top quality managers in the Premier League. He's shown it with Brentford for all those years, and I think that he's going to do it again with Spurs. He brought in Mohamed Kudus, and he tried to bring in Morgan Gibbs-White to be those similar Bumo-style player. I think he has his guy in Kudus. I think if he gets Eze, he'll turn Eze into a machine. I think Pedro Porro is class. On the left, Jed Spence. The emergence of Jed Spence is amazing. The midfield, or the back two with Romero and Van de Ven, Vicario in goal. And then the midfield, obviously, James Maddison. That injury hurts. However, you have the pieces to do the job. Joao Palhinha, new signing, quality player. Pat Matesar, good player. Lucas Bergvall, good player. Bentancur, quality player. And then, obviously, you lost Son, but at the same time, you have Matisse Tell, who you made the loan permanent. Solanke, when he's fit, and then Kudus. It'll be interesting to see what Spurs do this year, but I think that they have the depth, and I think that they finally have the manager. We saw a lot more of a structured approach to the game than you would have gotten with Ange Postecoglou. The difference in management will take Spurs back to where they expect to be. We'll see how they balance the Prem with Champions League this year, but I do think that they come out of the first few weeks with positive performances. They play Burnley in the first week, so I think they'll start with 3 points on the board and they'll be feeling pretty good about themselves. Now the final 4. I'm going to put 4 down because I think, I said this last time, but I think the top 3 is interchangeable. I don't know if you guys could hear that. That is the landscaping. Now, we're still at early doors in what we're doing, but we're going to get a mic. We're going to improve, but it's going to take time, man. And I appreciate you guys being here for the journey, because the day that we do blow everything up and blow everything out of the water and become one of the better content creating groups on the platform, it'll be nice. And we could remember times like this where I'm trying to make a video and the people that are landscaping at the house next door, you could hear them. But where was I, man? Anyways, team in 4th. You want to argue with me? Argue with me. Pause the video. Say, Jaden, you're wrong. I don't care. That's the thing. This is my rankings, and I have Arsenal in 4th. And if you have a problem with it, then we'll talk. No, in all seriousness, I do have Arsenal 4th. I think the main thing that separates the 3 teams left and Arsenal is the fact that they all made severe improvements this summer as a club. As a club, all these teams took massive step forward. And I think Arsenal took a step forward in terms of getting the number 9 that they so badly needed. But that's pretty much it. They didn't revamp. I mean, they made signings that are important, but they lost Thomas Partey, who was the glue. They replaced him with Zubimendi. We don't know what Zubimendi is going to provide. Madueke, instead, I mean, they could have had somebody like Rodrigo. And again, we'll talk about this later. But I just don't think Arsenal is at the levels of these 3 other clubs at this moment. And don't get me wrong, if Arsenal go on and they get second, because they're not winning the league, but if they get second, then I'll say, you know what, fair play, like I could see that happening. I really see 4th as a possibility for Arsenal, and that's pretty much all I have to say about them. Arteta, I don't think Arteta has been as good as people maybe make him out to be. Maybe that's a heated opinion, I'm not too sure. I think Gyökeres does well. Saka, obviously amazing. Odegaard and Rice in midfield is going to be class. I don't know. Gabriel Saliba, best center back pairing in the league. They have a lot of good. They really do. I mean, this is a team that I'm saying that is going to finish fourth, so it's not like they're a bad team. I just don't think that they're as good as the three left, and that's simply it, really. And that puts us into third. And ooh, I don't know. I don't know what to do. I know what my rankings are on paper. Like I wrote them down before I started, and I have a team in third. But now I'm looking at this and I'm like, do I want to put them in third? Okay, let me preface by saying I think any one of these three teams can win the league. Okay? With that being said, third place, City. Is that going to get me in trouble, man? Is that a bold take? But I'm sticking with it. I have City in third. I don't know why. Good window from City, top manager. I think Pep has been there so long at this point to where, not that it's time for him to move on, but I really do think that we're towards the end of the Pep regime in Manchester. Especially as a United fan, I can say that because I'm sick of him. Losing De Bruyne, the signing of Reinders was a great signing. Haaland obviously will be back to probably his best. You can expect Foden to be much better than he was last year. I think Guardiola unlocks Doku this year. Savinho may go, but you know, they have cover in Ray and Cherky, who's brand new. I think the back five could use a little bit of work, really. I mean, they brought in Aït-Nouri, Gvardiol's still there, Ruben Dias still there. There's pieces. City have done so much winning over the past how many years, and I just am kind of sick of it. So if you want the truth, that's the truth. That's why I have them in third. There's not really anything bad to say about City. They're a good club with great players and a good manager, but let's just change it up. If City win the league, wouldn't be surprised. If City come in third, I told you so. If City come in second, wouldn't be surprised. Okay, I'll pick the winner. So who do you guys think I'm going to pick out of these two? I mean, I think it's pretty... I think it's pretty obvious, but my Premier League champions for 25-26 is not Chelsea. Is Liverpool. I think Liverpool win. Let's talk about Chelsea first, though. Chelsea Football Club, I have them finishing in second place. Maybe this is recency bias with that Club World Cup run. I think in the Club World Cup, they were phenomenal. I think Maresca was brilliant. If Reece James we talk about this every year. If Reece James stays fit, they are unreal. They signed the strikers that they needed to sign. They signed wingers like Estevao, generational talent, honestly. Jamie Bino and then Moises Caicedo in midfield with Enzo and Reece James at times. They lost Levi Colwill to ACL. But outside of that, the squad looks so strong, and I think Maresca is such a good manager, and we saw what he can do against teams like PSG in the Club World Cup. We know that Chelsea can do it for the one-off game, but if Chelsea can do it for a full Premier League season, the league's in trouble. The league is in trouble, guaranteed. For now, I have Chelsea second. Let's talk about the champions. Liverpool Football Club, back to back if things go to my predictions. I just think Arne Slot is so good. And I think that this Liverpool team is so good. It's hard to talk about Liverpool without mentioning the transfer window, so we'll just run over it super quick. Wirtz, Kerkez, Frimpong. Who else am I missing? Wirtz, Frimpong, Mamardashvili, I guess. But the team is just so good. They lost Diaz, they lost Trent, they lost good players. But this team is so elite that I just think that Slot has every tool he needs to win the Premier League again this season. The midfield, I know we talked about Newcastle's midfield earlier, but the midfield of Grav with Wirtz and McAllister, or however they want to do it, Szoboszlai. I know people are saying that Liverpool lost a lot and they don't quite have the depth that they did last year. I disagree. I think that Liverpool have the depth. I think Connor Bradley took a big step forward. I think you still have Andy Robertson at the club. Guys like Giovanni Leoni and maybe Marguehi are coming in. Ekitike, if you sign Isak, then it's just no question. The potential for Liverpool is so insane that I think their potential is higher than Chelsea. That's why I have them as champions of the league this season. Salah is not slowing down anytime soon, I don't think. He might take a little bit of a regression this year because of his age, but don't expect it to be anything serious. Van Dijk the same way. Expect him to be one of the best center backs in the league again. Konate, as long as they keep Konate, that center back pairing is solidified. They have Alisson and now Mamardashvili. So they're just set up for not only this season, but for the future. Again, I just see it in the cards for a Liverpool back-to-back. And I hate, again, as a United fan, I hate to say it. I do. Trust me, I do. But that's just how I feel. So let me know. All right, guys. You know what? We're just going to wrap it up there. We've been talking for a while now. How long has it been we've been talking for? Almost an hour. So let's just call it. that's my Premier League predictions. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If there's anything that you agree with, anything you disagree with, anything that I missed, let me know in the comments. Follow us on TikTok, like, subscribe. Guys, we can't do this without your support and your help. So leave us some feedback of what you guys want to see next. We hope you enjoyed the video. And that has been us, or I guess that has been me. That has been me today from the stands. So we'll see you guys next time. Hope you enjoyed. Catch you later.